Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. The US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is to leave his role at the White House, according to the news agency Reuters. After months of negotiations, the US and Ukraine have signed a historic natural resources deal. The US urged India and Pakistan to de-escalate tensions following the deadly militant attack in India-administered Kashmir last week. Now to our top story. The US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is to leave his role at the White House. That's according to the news agency Reuters. He is the first member of Trump's senior leadership team to leave in the president's second term. For more on this, I'm joined by correspondent Nick Harper, who is in Washington. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Donald Trump's National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, as we said, is the first high-profile advisor to leave his post. What details are emerging?
That's right, Leigh-Ann. Definitely unexpected here in Washington today, but perhaps not unsurprising. We did see Mike Waltz appear on television earlier on. He was speaking to Fox News to speak about a possible deal over the war in Ukraine. And then just a couple of hours later, this news coming out of the White House that hasn't been confirmed yet by the White House, that he would be leaving his position. It's not clear if he resigned or if he was forced out, but the latter seems more likely because there has been growing unease about Mike Waltz over the course of the last few weeks, ever since a journalist was accidentally added to a group chat on Signal to discuss classified details of air raids against Houthi rebels in Yemen. And that created considerable problems for all of the people on that chat, but in particular Mike Waltz, because he said that he took full responsibility for what happened by adding accidentally that journalist to the chat. So all of this coming out, the White House is still yet to comment on it, even though Donald Trump spoke a couple of moments ago as part of an event that was taking place at the White House.
Yes, Nick, as you said there, the Signal group chat scandal did happen. It was on the 26th of March, so a while ago. Waltz did take full responsibility at the time. And like you said, it remains unclear if he chose to leave or if Trump made this decision. But the one question is, why now?
That's right. During Donald Trump's first term, much of it was categorised by the chaos at the White House, the multiple firings of multiple cabinet members very early on in his presidency. What's taken place this week is Donald Trump passing that first 100 days threshold, and he's done so without any firings. There is some speculation that really the White House was waiting to get past that 100-day milestone until Mike Waltz was pushed out. He even appeared on Wednesday at a cabinet meeting held by Donald Trump, where the cabinet members were around a table all speaking about achievements that the president had helped to push through. But interesting that there did seem to be perhaps some delay, as you mentioned, between that March chat on the Signal app and this now taking place past that 100-day threshold.
Nick, Donald Trump got rid of 4 national security advisors in his first term between 2016 and 2022. Are there growing concerns about cracks appearing in Trump's cabinet and those involved in Signalgate?
Yeah, it certainly seems like a poison chalice, that national security advisor role, 4 of them during Donald Trump's first term. One of them, Mike Flynn, just lasting 24 days. So Mike Waltz has done better than that at 101 days. But yes, certainly some problems when it comes to the other members involved in that chat. In many ways, perhaps Mike Waltz has become the sacrificial lamb, if you will, in terms of pushing someone out because of the problems created by that Signal chat. Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary was another person who was in the firing line at one point, but it seems that there is very much a strong connection between Donald Trump and his defense secretary. He even said about him a little while earlier today that Pete Hegseth is doing a fantastic job. And during Wednesday's cabinet meeting, he had that pole position seat right next to Donald Trump at the table. It seems, although there have been that problems and that fallout for the members of the chat, Mike Waltz is bearing the brunt. Pete Hegseth, so far, remaining unscathed.
There's speculation Steve Witkoff could take up the role. What more do we know about his replacement at this current stage?
That's right. Yeah, he is one name that is being mentioned. Of course, it's not going to be the Deputy National Security Advisor because he is reportedly also being pushed out along with Mike Waltz, so wouldn't have the chance to step up into that position. Steve Witkoff, yes, he is being mentioned. He's officially the Middle East envoy, but he's had his fingers in plenty of pies over the course of the last 100 days. He's also been involved, as you perhaps remember, in those talks in Riyadh with a Russian delegation trying to normalise US-Russia relations, and also been involved in trying to do some sort of deal in Gaza to end the conflict there, also speaking to Iran. So spent plenty of foreign policy experience picked up over the course of the last 100 days, plenty of national security experience that perhaps puts him in a good position to take over. We also know that he is a firm friend of Donald Trump. He's a real estate mogul, and during Donald Trump's first presidency, he was even involved in a business committee that was looking at investment during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic.
So, Nick, you mentioned earlier Mike Waltz was on US TV just today discussing the US-Ukraine natural resources deal. How historic is this moment?
I mean, an historic deal. I mean, it's amazing in some respects that that deal has even been done. Just a couple of months ago, of course, we saw President Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office with Donald Trump, that very public shouting match between the two of them. At that time, the thinking was that Zelensky was in Washington to sign the deal, and suddenly it seemed off the table. But here we are now discussing the deal being done. Now, it has changed slightly from its first iteration, but it does give the United States a financial stake in Ukraine, and therefore perhaps a financial incentive to end the conflict. This is all about creating a joint investment fund to help with humanitarian aid, to help with military aid, also help rebuilding the country as well. It gives the United States preferential access, not just to rare earths, as Donald Trump had first hoped for, but also a whole range of other natural resources, things like copper, gold, oil, gas. And it also means that there will be the possibility of future military assistance from Washington to Kyiv. At one point, Donald Trump was saying that this deal would simply be payback for past military assistance. This new deal, though, makes it clear that there will be that possibility of future assistance, and that's tied to this deal. So very much a reciprocal deal, and perhaps in a way that it wasn't when it was first drawn up a couple of months ago.
Nick Harper in Washington, thank you so much. For more on the natural resources deal, we can speak to Ukrainian MP Olena Khomenko, who is in Kyiv. Olena, thank you so much for joining me. First of all, what does this deal mean for Ukraine?
This deal means, first of all, equal partnership. The fund is created on 50-50 basis. So both parties, Ukraine and the United States, will make their contributions and have equal representation in the management. It will maintain control of Ukraine over suboil, infrastructure, and natural resources. There will be no transfer of assets. The agreement is in line with the constitution of Ukraine and guarantees the inviolability of sovereign rights. And state-owned enterprises and privatization are not parts of the agreement. So we don't have concerns with regards to this, and This is about investments, not debt. The agreement doesn't mention debt obligations. The fund is a co-investment instrument and can invest exclusively in Ukraine. And during first 10 years, the profits from the fund can be only used to rebuild infrastructure and rebuild Ukraine. And after the 10th year, they can be distributed among the partners. This also provides guarantees for investors and buyers. The fund can not only guarantee investing in projects, but also provides guarantees for commercial purchases of products on a take or pay basis. And to implement this agreement, only 2 legislative changes are required. These are amendments to the budget code, and also agreement itself will have to be ratified by the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine.
What are the immediate next steps now following this deal, which has been signed?
The immediate next step is the ratification of the agreement by the Parliament of Ukraine, by the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, and then we will start implementation of the agreement.
I just also wanted to ask you, we've seen this natural resources deal be signed, but how crucial do you think the meeting between Donald Trump and Zelensky was in Rome?
I don't think it is. It is of course important, and I cannot comment whether it was critical, but of course, this meeting also helped Ukraine and the United States to come to the agreement. So we have the benefits, the obvious outcomes of this meeting, because we have today the agreement signed between our countries.
Meanwhile, there have been more drone strikes overnight on Odessa. Zelensky says there needs to be more pressure on Ukraine, and he's ready for peace negotiations. Only after...
there is a mistake.
Only after... Go ahead.
More pressure on Russia. On Russia. Of course, we need to keep pressure on Russia. We need to keep pressure in terms of imposing sanctions and not lifting sanctions, because Russian economy is shrinking, and it's getting drastic for them. So in order to prevent them from producing more weapons, more drones, United States should retain sanctioning policy, and so in this way, our partners, our other allies, should follow.
Ukrainian MP Olena Khomenko, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. Thousands of Israeli reservists have signed letters demanding that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government stop the Gaza war and focus on the release of hostages. Netanyahu had previously threatened to dismiss soldiers who speak out against the war or publicly support petitions aimed at halting the conflict. Last month, Israeli media reported that the government had begun taking disciplinary action against military doctors who had signed the petitions. Tesla has denied reports that it contacted recruitment firms to replace Elon Musk as CEO. Tesla's chair says the board is still confident in Musk's leadership ability. The Wall Street Journal reports that the board was frustrated over Tesla's sinking share price and Musk's role in the Trump administration. At least 542 civilians have been killed in Sudan's North Darfur region over the last 3 weeks. The United Nations is warning the actual death toll could be much higher. Violence has recently surged in the region, which has become a key battleground in the war that erupted in 2023. And a fisherman in England has captured a very close encounter with a killer whale off the coast of Northumberland. The video shows the orca swimming alongside the boat and spraying water out of its blowhole. Experts believe the pod of whales were hunting for seals in the area. The United States has urged India and Pakistan to work together and de-escalate tensions following the deadly militant attack in Indian-administered Kashmir last week. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio held separate talks with India's foreign minister and Pakistan's prime minister yesterday and called on them to maintain peace and security in South Asia. India accuses Pakistan of supporting militants behind the April the 22nd attack in Pahalgam. Islamabad rejects these allegations. Earlier today, I spoke with the former spokesperson to the Prime Minister of Pakistan about the rising tensions. Former spokesperson to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Musadik Malik, thank you so much for joining me. Great to have you on the show. Pakistan's defence and former foreign minister have both warned of the potential of an all-out war between India and Pakistan. What is the risk level currently?
I think it all depends upon India. Because right now, the aggressor is India. All of this warmongering or war conversation that is taking place, it's primarily coming from India. So it depends upon India. All Pakistan is saying is that it's ready. Has never been our preference. War is not our preference. We want to sort out things in a civilized manner, but that should not be construed or seen as any weakness. And I think that's what you're hearing from Pakistan right now.
The US is urging India and Pakistan to work together to de-escalate tensions in the region. What steps are Pakistan taking to implement this?
Well, I think the unilateralism is coming from India. So if you look at the suspension of treaty, the Indus Water Treaty, that has not come about because our dialogue broke. It came about because of unilateralism. So right now, as I said earlier, most of the provocation, all of the provocation is coming from India, and Pakistan is responding simply in equal proportions as a dignified nation.
As you've said to me, India is the aggressor. India is accusing Pakistan of supporting militants behind the attack in April, which did kill 26 people. Islamabad has denied involvement. But what evidence does Pakistan have that it is not involved in this?
Look, if the act of aggression took place on the Indian soil, and the allegation is also coming from India, then isn't the onus of responsibility on India that it lays out all the trail of evidence or the proof that Pakistan is behind any of these actions? I mean, Pakistan gets hit every day. If you look at the situation in Pakistan, we are facing the brunt of terrorism. Every day, 10 of our soldiers and about 30 civilians die because of these acts of terror. And you've heard many a times that even from within Pakistan, many people point fingers to the neighboring countries. But we've never done warmongering. We always try to make sure that our defense and our security apparatus is in place to protect our people. But in any of these events, we can pick up any of these events and we can start to do warmongering, but then it would be irresponsible. So if India had an event, and India is putting these allegations, I'm sure they have a trail of evidence. And I think they should put forth that trail of evidence in front of all the journalists, the international community, And if they want, they can share it with Pakistan as well. Pakistan is open, but not giving any evidence. And just because there's been an aggressive incident in India, blaming Pakistan without any proof, without any evidence, and then doing warmongering, I think is irresponsible.
There are concerns the local economy is going to suffer. How deadly is this for people who do live in the region, as people feel unsure about visiting because of the security concerns?
I think wars by definition are deadly. So how deadly is it? It depends how bad a war it becomes. So I think before getting in climbing this ladder of inference or ladder of aggression, it would be prudent to sit and talk. And as I offered, and I said, if there is any proof, would like to see that proof, but without proof, kind of doing this warmongering, I think is very irresponsible.
India
and on Pakistani side, when you say, well, you produce a proof, we produce a proof for what? They haven't produced anyone. They haven't said, here is a person, this person is responsible, and this person has relationships with Pakistan. So come forth with evidence that Pakistan has nothing to do with this person. So many days have gone by. Have you heard? Have they identified? Have they gotten a hold of the perpetrators? Have they created any linkage with Pakistan? Is there any evidence on the table that I should respond to? In the absence of all of that, if there is some phantom person, some phantom organization, which is being alleged to be behind this act, what proof can I bring to the fore? If you have any specific questions, I'm willing to answer.
Well, let's just move on, because India has announced it's closed its airspace to Pakistan aircraft. What impact will this have?
Not material. I think it's unfortunate. We have closed our airspace to them. They have closed their airspace to us. They are the ones who are basically doing unilateralism. As I said, we are primarily an agrarian economy. We have 240 million people, of whom about half are involved in agriculture. So any country that threatens another country with shutting down its lifeline is playing with fire.
Let's talk about India suspending the water treaty. Officials in Islamabad have described this as an act of war. Can you explain to me why?
I've just explained it to you, that if there is no water, there is no agriculture. If there's no agriculture, there are issues of food security. And if there are issues of food security, what would Pakistan do? So I think this entire thing that will shut down your water is tantamount to war provocation. And I think responsible countries don't do that, and India shouldn't do it. I mean, India is not the place where this water originates. Water originates up there in China. What if tomorrow China turns around and says, we're going to shut down your water? What would India do? How would India behave? I'm not saying China would say that, but to whom does the water belong? Is water the source? Is water the river? Is water the basin? Or is water a civilization? And if you look at the history of water, you would find out that water is civilization. So as water flows, civilizations flow. And therefore, upper riparian countries have never basically come down to taking the position that India has taken. And India is also downstream, as I said, from another country, which can also shut its water. And then what would happen? Then India won't have water. So therefore, I think this is a very bizarre framework where you say, I would shut down air for you, I would shut down water for you, I would shut down soil for you. These natural assets don't belong to a particular country. And therefore, whoever wants to take position should take position with great caution and responsibility, and India is doing neither.
What resolution does Pakistan want to see going forward?
I think India is the one that unilaterally went up the ladder of escalation. So the responsibility primarily is on India to come down the ladder of escalation. From Pakistani perspective, we were, as I was the water minister before, and we were always open to having a dialogue with India. We were in communications with India, and India was not coming to the table in accordance with the treaty. So it is quite bizarre, because if you look at the past couple of years, you would see that India was continuously violating the Indus Water Treaty. And all of those mandatory kind of dialogues that have to take place, India was not coming to already. Before this particular incident, India was not coming to the table to have that dialogue. So there was something about the treaty which had nothing to do with this particular thing that has happened. And therefore, when you look at it and say they were already not coming to the table, they were already not carrying out the dialogue which was mandatory and required by the treaty, and now they've picked up something which has happened as a consequence of what they're doing to their own people. So if you look at the aggressive stance that India has taken on minorities, particularly Muslim minorities, and specifically in Kashmir, you would begin to see why their people are retaliating against the government. Now, if you use that provocation, you come down hard on your minorities, Muslim minorities, Kashmiri minorities, and some faction of a group retaliates, an Indian group on Indian soil to Indian people. You hold Pakistan responsible and suspend the water treaty. To us, it's bizarre.
Former spokesperson to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Musadik Malik, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
For the latest on this story from India, correspondent Rebecca Bundahan sent this update from Mumbai.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held a series of high-level meetings this week as the country tries to decide on the next course of action. It's reported that Mr. Modi has given the armed forces full operational freedom to decide on the timing, mode and target of a military response. India's Navy, it's understood, has been conducting extensive drills in the Arabian Sea, and its warships are on alert. And there's mounting speculation about whether India will launch a military strike against Pakistan. And that's something that Islamabad says it has credible intelligence of, that a strike is imminent. There's also been this cross-border firing across the de facto border between India and Pakistan, although there haven't been any reports of casualties. So far, the response from India has been non-military in its nature, including the suspension of an important water treaty, the cancellation of visas of Pakistani nationals in India, and closing airspace to Pakistani airlines. But in this current situation, there are concerns that really are persisting, as the two nuclear-armed neighbours have yet to resolve the situation.
Following yesterday's announcement that the US economy shrunk during the first 3 months of this year, President Trump has tried to reassure America that his tariffs won't cause a recession. He's also blamed the growth downturn on his predecessor, Joe Biden. For more on this, I'm joined by economist and wealth management consultant, Dr Jihad AlHaqami. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me. First of all, whose fault is it that the US GDP was down 0.3% in the first quarter?
Do you want to put it on someone?
I don't want to put it on anyone. I just want to know what you think.
Actually, it's several factors. Of course, tariffs played a big role in this. We cannot deny it. But you have to take into consideration that normally and historically speaking, whenever you have a cycle of increasing or hiking interest rate, and then you're going to start decreasing interest rate, historically speaking, the economy might go into a certain recession. But of course, the tariffs, actually, it was kind of the cherry on the cake. It made things worse. So this is briefly.
So briefly, there's a few reasons behind that uptick in GDP. If the US economy is anxious now, can we expect worse to come? Because as the impact of tariffs start to be felt, so as it takes a while for goods from China to arrive in US ports, and we know that the US-China tariff war started on about April the 10th.
Yeah, but I want to go back a bit on the first question. You have to take into consideration that lots of industries knew that there will be a hike in tariffs. So they started importing ahead of time more than they wanted or more than the normal quotas. So this contributed as well to, that's why I said it was as well due to the tariffs. So imagine whenever you import a lot, so it's going to be reflected in your GDP because imports are minus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, do you think that the impact of the tariffs is really going to start to be felt now in the coming quarters ahead?
It depends on several issues. Will President Trump delay or goes and put certain exceptions, or because he's kind of lenient, as we've seen. So he's trying to disrupt maybe what's happening around the globe to see if he can get a better version of the current equilibrium. And he's pragmatic, as we know. So if he thinks that there might be something wrong, he might go back on his words, try where to be more lenient, where to be tougher. So you can know a lot about President Trump from his first term. So for me, he's not a surprise. For me, in case he's gonna feel that something wrong is gonna happen, he might figure out what to do.
So Trump is saying short, sharp pain, that's what he's telling people, for long-term gain when it comes to the economy. Can US consumers expect higher prices for goods? And are people currently nervous about spending money in the US because of the economic uncertainty that they're facing?
Yeah, we've seen the numbers yesterday when it comes to Michigan survey, Consumer Confidence Index. It fell to its lowest level since 5 years. We've seen as well the Conference Board Index, its lowest level since 11 years. Of course, consumers are worried, and we know that we are in a service economy, the States, and it matters a lot. Of course, inflation is a major factor, and I guess President Trump has to take it into consideration. Otherwise, if the situation is going to go out of hand, so the recession might be around. So although they're saying in case there will be a recession, it's going to be a mild recession.
So let's just quickly talk. You're talking about inflation there, but he's obviously been pushing the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, to cut rates. What do you think is going to happen? Interest rates are going to be cut at the next meeting?
No. It's not going to be cut in the next meeting, and it seems the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and actually if we look at the percentages, what the market is expecting, we don't think that there will be any cut in the upcoming meeting because we have fears of inflation, and the Fed should be independent, as we know.
Okay. I'll take that prediction and I'll keep that. But some economists have pointed out that robust consumer spending and private investment is actually a sign of growth. And it's a sign that growth could bounce back, essentially. What's your opinion on this? Do you say, yes, that could happen?
But the Consumer Confidence Index and the Conference Board Index, they are leading indicators, and they tell us that consumer is not comfortable about what's happening. Of course, this is a controversial topic. Some back what President Trump is doing. As you said, it's going to be short-term pain for long-term gain, but the consumer still feels the inflation and how it impacted the purchasing power. So I think the situation is not very good for the consumer, and the fear of inflation is still there. That's why I expect that the Federal Reserve and the Federal Open Market Committee will not cut interest rate in their next meeting.
Earlier, we reported on Tesla. They denying reports it's looking for a new CEO to replace Musk after the shares have really fallen for Tesla. What does it need to turn around its fortunes, Tesla? Does it need someone else, not Elon Musk?
If I know the answer, I'll be the next CEO. It's not that easy, but I guess...
I'll put your CV in.
Yes, thank you. But I guess most probably they need to distance Tesla from the controversial political scene, because now we know that Elon Musk is, in a way or another, involved into politics. So that's why it's having a major impact on Tesla. And I guess we should deal with the governance factor, succession plan, have better communication with the stakeholders, not just the shareholders, and to work, of course, on improving efficiency, scalability, and you have fierce competition, as you know, from electrical vehicles from China.
Absolutely.
We cannot deny it.
Yeah, no, we can't deny that at all. But Dr. Jihad, I was just going to ask another question going back to the economy.
Yeah.
If the US economy goes into recession, what does that mean for economies around the globe? How will that impact other countries' economies?
It will impact for sure, because actually the United States is the biggest economy in the world, and actually all economies are interconnected in a way or another. So it's going to impact all prices. It's going to, because you know, in case the GDP is going to fall, it means you have less demand. And the States is the #1 consumer of energy around the globe before China. So, of course, it's going to impact different countries, but with different magnitudes. It depends on how these countries are interconnected with the states.
And let's move on to AI now, because that's a big talking point. It's having a massive impact on industries around the globe. But how is AI shaping the future of the finance industry? So how safe is all those jobs in the financial world?
Actually, you have to take into consideration something very important, that in finance, as an industry, we are the second adopter of AI, maybe after healthcare. So it's impacting the consumer in a very good way, and they have better efficiency. So, you know, you don't need now to wait for the traditional way to get approval on a certain loan. You have real data. There is a concept very important. They call it Geigo effect. They say whenever you have, I don't like to use the word how they use it, because they say garbage in, garbage out, because I prefer to say gold in, gold out.
Gold in, gold, yes.
Yes, so you have real-time data when it comes to finance. You can use this data for algorithmic trading. You can use it to forecast how the consumer is going to behave in the future. You have embedded finance now. It means you have finance in non-finance applications. You have, if you want, you have bots that can help you how to do automation. Yes, automation when it comes to allocation of your assets, of your spending. You have what we call the RegTech, InsurTech. So it's making, you have inclusion factor now, because due to fintech, so for those who are unbanked or underbanked. So you have plenty of things that are improving due to what we call fintech. Certain jobs will disappear, but others will be created, especially those who, because there is a famous quote going around the globe, AI will not replace you. Those who do not know how to use AI will be replaced.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that quote more. I just want to pick up on something. You forecasted this, I heard, back on TV a while ago, that the crash in gold was going to happen in 2013. So you have a history of being able to forecast things. Is there something that you could forecast for me now?
What do you want? I know that ladies are interested in diamonds.
Yes, I'm interested in gold. I'm interested in diamonds. But in all honesty, where do you think that investors should be putting their money, and what can we expect to see in the future?
My advice to investors is always diversify or die. So, I mean, if they don't diversify well, they lose their financial independence. So always they have to follow this golden rule and follow not just across sectors, but as well across markets, countries, and everywhere. So it's better to not time the market, but it's more about the time in the market.
So diversify or die. That's
Exactly.
your. And what about diamonds?
It's women's best friend,
yeah,
as you know.
I know. I need to have more. I've got none on.
Of
but
course.
yeah, it was so lovely to have you on. Thank you
you
so much for all your insights. It was really, really interesting, and
you for having
I
me.
really appreciate you. Thank you very much. Economist and wealth management consultant Dr Jihad AlHaqami. Once again, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
A reminder of our top stories. The US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is to leave his role at the White House, according to the news agency Reuters. After months of negotiations, the US and Ukraine have signed a historic natural resources deal. The US has urged India and Pakistan to de-escalate tensions following the deadly militant attack in Indian-administered Kashmir last week. And that's all from us on W News. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on X. The Riz Khan Show is coming up next, followed by Counterpoints with Melinda Nusafora. Plus, of course, we'll be back in a couple of hours with W News Extra. Goodbye and thank you for joining us.